Rachel Stark here. Welcome to our 2020 Earth Day event. So what we want to talk about first is a little bit of the history of Earth Day. So Earth Day is celebrated every year on April 22nd, and it first started in the year 1970. The reason that Earth Day started was this woman named Rachael released a book called Silent Spring. And Silent Spring was all about these different environmental issues that were facing the people of that time, including pollution, all types of litter. You even had deforestation, all these things that were really, really bad for the environment. And people got really, really passionate and enthusiastic about that, and it started what's called the Green Movement. And by the year 1970, a group of people were able to come together and create the first ever Earth Day. So this year, 2020, is the 50th anniversary of the first Earth Day. So it's really, really important this year especially to make sure you are out celebrating this phenomenal holiday. I'm sure there's lots of activities, even virtually, going on in your neighborhood, so make sure to check them out. So for our Earth Day event, the first thing we are going to do is talk about Leave No Trace. So, can anybody tell me what Leave No Trace is? Just think about it in your head, say it out loud, whatever you want to do. That's right. Leave no trace is as simple as leaving an area in the outdoors better than it was when you found it. So whether you're going hiking, biking, camping, fishing, boating, whatever you are doing, you want to leave the area better than it was when you found it. So no garbage, no burn rings, anything like that. That way the next group coming in thinks, wow, this campsite is untouched. Nobody has ever been here before. So there are 7 principles or 7 rules to follow when it comes to leave no trace. So these 7 rules are a really good guide to make sure that you leave absolutely no trace in the outdoors. The first one is really, really easy. It is actually the Scout motto. Does anybody know what the Scout motto is? That's right, the Scout motto is to be prepared. So the first principle of leave no trace is to plan ahead and be prepared. So some important things to plan ahead and be prepared might be to get a map of your local state park where you're going to be hiking so you don't get lost on the trails. You might want to check the weather forecast ahead of time. You know, a day like today where we have thunderstorms and wind might not be a good day to go out, but tomorrow the forecast is saying it's going to be sunny and warm, and that's going to be perfect for us. Looking at that weather is also going to help us figure out how we want to pack. Of course, if I'm going out on a day like tomorrow and it's going to be 60 degrees, I don't need a winter hat like I would if I were going out on a day in December. So it's really important to check all of those things out. You want to make sure there's water there, restrooms, check on all of that stuff. And of course, you have to do a lot more planning for longer events than you do for a short day hike. So what we're going to do now to plan ahead and be prepared is we are going to pack our backpack. My mom is taking me to Francis Locum tomorrow. We're going on a nice 1-mile hike with my dog, and I want to make sure that I am fully prepared for everything that we might face. I did check the weather. Like I said, it's going to be really nice out tomorrow, so let's see what we could pack. I might need my tent. You know, if it starts raining, that tent's going to be really important to get out of the rain. And if I bring my tent, I of course am going to need my sleeping bag. And then of course, the last thing I'm going to need is this extra camelback, just in case I get extra thirsty on my walk. So I think I'm all ready to go now. Let's see. Uh-oh. Okay, lift with your knees, not with your back. Well, I don't think that's going to work. I think we need to rewind and retry so that we could only pack the essentials this time for our one. We're trying this again. Maybe what I should do instead this time, instead of using this big backpack, I should use this smaller one for a quick 1-mile hike in the woods. So I'm gonna find the zipper here, open this up. Now, what are some things that you think are essential for our 1-mile hike in the woods? Definitely our water, maybe a water purifier. You never know what we're gonna come across. Definitely our first aid kit. That was a good one. Bug spray. I might be able to get away with applying this now. And now the bugs won't bother me while I'm there, and I can leave it here. Don't have to worry about taking it. I do like birding, so I think this time I'm still gonna take my binoculars. But other than that, much better. Now we're ready for a 1 mile hike in the woods. But that means it's time to move on to Leave No Trace Principle 2. Our second principle of Leave No Trace is to travel and to camp on durable surfaces. For traveling, it's really straightforward. It just means to stick to the trails. You want to make sure that you're sticking to the trails because that's going to limit our impact. If everyone were to walk wherever they wanted all of the time, we would have trails cutting through wildflowers, grasses, moss, lichen, everything, and it would make it very difficult for those things to grow. So no matter if there's a puddle in your way or a lot of mud, you want to make sure to stick to the trail as much as possible. Now sometimes there's difficult choices when it comes to traveling on a durable surface. If you come to a great big area and there's wildflowers everywhere, but you have to walk through it, and you're with a group of people, do you know what you want to do? That's right, you want to spread out. If all of you walk in a straight line in the same area, it's going to trample down that area to make it look like a trail that other people are then going to use. If you spread out, no one's going to know that you walked on that area, and it's going to be great. Now, for camping on durable surfaces, let's walk to our campsite. For camping on durable surfaces, this is also really straightforward. Your best durable surface for camping is an already designated campsite. In a lot of different parks, you have to camp at an already designated campsite, and if you don't get there before they're all filled up, you're out of luck. If you go to Camp Aquila, a designated campsite would be somewhere like Blackfeet, Trailwood, Lumberjack, one of those areas that is designated for camping. They even have a fire ring for you. If you're in an area that doesn't require a designated campsite area, then what you'll want to do is make sure that you find a nice area that's about 200 feet away from the trail so that you're out of everybody's way, you won't disturb anyone hiking by, somewhere that's flat and comfortable but also not run down by a lot of visitors. And that's where you'll set up your camp. Please don't stay there for more than 3 days though, because if you stay there for more than 3 days, you risk trampling down the area, which means that other passerbyers might stop there thinking it's a designated campsite, and then it's going to become one. I guess that means good night. The third principle of Leave No Trace is to dispose of waste properly. Now that can be broken down into a couple different parts. The first part is really straightforward. It's just getting rid of your garbage. Whether that be garbage that you have from a snack along the trail, or if you're with an adult, have gloves on hand, and you are only picking up garbage and leaving alone glass, cigarettes, and dangerous things, you could also pick up other people's trash on the trail.
He's our hero, gonna take pollution down to zero. He's our powers magnified, and he's fighting on the planet side. Captain Planet, he's our planet.
Another type of waste is food waste. So when you're done cooking your meal in your camp equipment, you want to make sure that you get all of the food out that you did not eat and put it into a little baggie. We don't want to release any particles onto the ground because they could attract animals. Once all of the food is out, you're going to put a little bit of soap. Biodegradable soap is better, but Dawn dish soap will do just the same, and warm water in, and you're going to scrub it. Once it's all clean, all you're going to do is you're going to hold the pan, and rather than dumping the water out in one spot, which is going to concentrate that soap and kill the grass, you want to fan it out, which is going to make sure that it doesn't seriously damage anything. Another type of waste is human waste. So what do you do when you have to do the do on your hike? You want to dig a cat hole. So cat holes are really easy to dig, and it doesn't have to be scary for you. So what you want to do is make sure that you're 200 feet away from your campsite area and 200 feet away from water so nothing leaches into the water. What you're going to do when you're ready to go, you're going to kneel down, you're going to find a nice area where you're not going to damage any plants around you, and you're going to dig in a kind of circular motion. Actually, that's plants there, so we're going to move over here so that we can break up any roots that are going to be there. And we're going to dig down. This isn't a good trowel, but you get the point. We're going to dig down, and we want to get down to the point where it's about 4 to 6 inches, and you'll notice the soil actually changing color. This length could vary depending on the park that you go to. So again, make sure to check your national park regulations. Some areas it might be less deep, where other areas you can't dig a cat hole at all and you have to pack it out. Once your hole is big enough, you're going to do your business. Get a stick. So we'll pretend I have a stick here. Mix it around. Cover it back up. You never want your trowel to touch it. And then some people like to put the stick right on top so everybody knows not to go there again, but the chances of that are slim to none, so you really don't have to do that. Leave no trace principle 4 is to leave what you find, whether it be a fallen down log in the woods that is now home to several species of insects and salamanders, or even if it's a flower that is still rooted in the ground. There are a couple different reasons you want to leave what you find. For the main purpose, you don't know if what you're taking is going to affect a species that is living in that area. If you roll over that log, that might be home to some creatures that you don't even see, some very, very tiny insects, some microorganisms that are now without a home. If you take a flower out of the ground that you just saw, you don't know if that was a sensitive endangered species, that now there's none left in that area. Or even if you take something like a turtle shell that you found on the ground that you think is super cool, that's something that could have broken down and returned to nature. As a good example, a couple years ago at Camp Akahila, we had a dead snapping turtle. The first week, I saw geese feasting on the snapping turtle. Over the next several weeks, we saw things like the American carrion beetle, which is a flesh-eating beetle, butterflies, tiny rodents, all sorts of insects flooding this turtle shell. And by the end of the summer, a lot of the bones had already started to break down by the microorganisms in the soil. So it's really, really cool to watch those things return to Earth. Another thing too, if you take things away because you think they're really cool, you are now preventing the person coming after you from having that same experience. If I were to pluck a flower out of the ground that I thought was really neat and that was the only flower in that area, well, now the next person walking that trail isn't going to have the opportunity to see that. And while they'll never know, they're definitely still missing out on a really cool opportunity. If you have an area like Gettysburg Battlefield, very long time ago when that first opened to the public, there were bullet casings and all sorts of really cool artifacts on the battlegrounds. Most of that is now gone just because so many people took them away. So it's really, really important to leave what you find.
I watched a video that told me picking flowers for my flower crown can bring me peace and good vibes.
That is a pretty flower, but you know what will bring you even more peace and good vibes? Leaving it in the ground. Haha, dude, hitting trees with sticks and tearing off all the leaves is so much fun. Oh, look, a rabbit! No, you definitely shouldn't do that. Leave the plants, the trees alone, and especially leave the wildlife alone.
My master said if I catch a squirrel, I could take it home.
Carter, no! You really can't do that. We'll come back to you later when we talk about respecting wildlife. Leave no trace principle 5 is to minimize campfire impact. Campfires aren't absolutely necessary when we are on a lot of our camping trips, but they are a great way to bring scouts together, do some fun skits and songs, and to keep us all warm. If you need to build a campfire, there are some things that you need to make sure you follow. First things first is to always build your campfire in a designated campfire pit. You never want to just build your campfire on an area of grass, gravel, whatever, because if you do that, that burn mark is going to stay there for a really, really long time. And if you build it over plants, it's going to take a long time for those plants to regrow. You always want to make sure too that the area around your campfire site is clean of any debris. If you have a small campfire and out here you have a lot of pine needles, it's very easy for that fire to jump out and set those pine needles aflame, which can cause a serious issue. Just in case anything like that ever happens, you want to make sure that you have a canister of water right near your campfire so that you can put it out immediately. Having a rake nearby is a really good way too to stop that fire from spreading. You also want to make sure that your fire doesn't get too high. I know building a high campfire could be really, really fun sometimes, but if you build the campfire higher than this, it'll be a lot easier for that fire to leap out and set something else aflame. You of course want to make sure that you have dry wood and that there's nothing in your fire that can burst, like rocks, like cement that might have some water in them, or if you have metal in there, that could cause damage to someone outside of the firing. Now what do you do if you absolutely need a fire? You're on some deserted island and you don't have a fire pit, but you need to keep warm. Well, something that you can do is build a mound fire. Fortunately, I don't have the tools here in my backyard to build one, but building a mound fire is really, really easy and straightforward. All you need to do is lay down a ground tarp that you want to be double the size of your fire. So if you're building about a 5-foot diameter fire, you want this to be about 10 feet long with a tarp. Could also be a garbage bag if you're going to build a really, really small fire. On top of that, you are going to place sand, gravel, or even mineral soil, which after you have that dirt, sand, or gravel on top of that, you can then build your fire. Of course, when you are done with the fire, you want to make sure that it is completely out, and then you want to put that sand, gravel, or dirt exactly where you found it, because of course, as we learned in Leave No Trace Principle 4, we want to leave what we find. And in all reality, like I mentioned before, you don't need a campfire. Camp stoves like this one are really, really inexpensive and easy to come by. This camp stove here cost me $20 and it came with a big cook set. And really all you do is you open it up, you attach it to your gas can here, and it's very, very lightweight too, so it's a good tool for backpacking. Open up the gas, and then there we go. There's our fire. I'm going to shut that off since we are near a real fire right now. But if I had this from the get-go, I would not have even needed to build this fire in order to make my cooking. So make sure that you do have a camp stove or even like a small one for your backpacking trips and your hiking trips. And remember, only you can prevent forest fires. Leave No Trace Principle 6 is to respect wildlife. So in order to respect wildlife, we want to keep a safe distance at all times. So here we have a wild hog out in the wilderness, a wild baby hog. When you have babies in the wilderness, you don't want to touch them, grab them. People get really excited when they find baby animals, but that could be really, really damaging. The mother might never come back if you pick them up. For fully grown animals, you definitely don't want to come within a certain distance of them, not only for their safety, but for your own safety. You'll see people every year charging the buffaloes at Yellowstone National Park. Not only does it stress the buffaloes out, making it difficult for them to eat the rest of the day, but it's also going to be really bad for you if that buffalo decides to come and charge you. So make sure to leave wildlife wild. Another important thing to respect wildlife is to keep your dog on a leash at all times. You might think that your dog is really well behaved and won't run away, but the second it sees a wild animal, it's gonna go after it. He's like, no. You also want to be sure not to feed wildlife. If you feed wildlife, you have a couple different problems that you're going to end up facing. One is that wildlife is going to keep coming back. And if that's something like a bear, that's going to be a serious issue if it keeps coming back to your campsite, or it got used to your campsite and now it's bothering the next people along the trail. It's also really important for the animal. Things like ducks and geese really aren't supposed to eat that much bread, but what do people tend to feed them? Bread. That's right. So you really want to avoid feeding the animals. Also, with animals like deer, they might get used to being fed in the wintertime, which is really, really bad because normally in the winter they adjust. They make it so that they don't need to eat as much. They're not expelling as much energy, so they don't need to consume as much. So if you start feeding them, they're going to start expelling more energy and needing more food. So then when you leave, that deer might end up starving because it never adjusted and slowed down its metabolism to be able to eat less. The seventh principle of Leave No Trace is to respect other people. So a really, really easy way to do that in the outdoors is to follow the previous 6 principles of Leave No Trace. So when you're in the outdoors, you want to do things like Be respectful of what other people might see as fun. You know, you don't know if someone likes fishing or hiking or backpacking, and you don't want to be rude in an area where they might be doing that.
Oh my God! You're so rude. I'm trying to take a selfie. Out of my way.
Okay, that's also something you don't want to do. Don't stand on the trail. If you need to have a break, step off to the side or to take a selfie picture. Another important thing is to not be too loud when you're in the outdoors. If people enjoy something like birding, or maybe they get some spirituality from being in the outdoors and it gets really, really difficult to get to... Excuse me! Can you please turn that down? Excuse me. All in all, it's really just common sense to respect other people in the outdoors. So, like I said before, everybody enjoys the outdoors differently. So when you're out there, think about the other people and put yourself in their shoes. We want to make sure that everybody has a good time while they are enjoying their outdoor activity. All right, so let's review. We've got 7 principles of leave no trace, and there's some hand motions to go along with it to help you remember them. 1, plan ahead and be prepared, like you're writing in a notebook. 2, travel and camp on durable surfaces. 3, get your trowel, dispose of waste properly. 4, leave what you find. 5, minimize campfire impact. 6, respect wildlife. And 7, respect other people. So we want to practice all 7 of those leave no trace principles whenever we go on an outdoor adventure. Hey everyone! So you might be wondering at this point, why does all of this really matter? Who cares if I leave no trace in the outdoors? Why can't I just do whatever I want? Well, think about it. If your parents, your grandparents, even your great-great-grandparents didn't leave no trace to some degree, there would be nothing left here for you to explore. Think about all of the national parks, all of these areas that are absolutely beautiful, like the Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, and close to us, Shenandoah National Park. All these areas of vast beauty and wild creatures that you get to experience. And there are over 400 other national park sites that you can explore that preserve history, preserve beauty, and preserve wildlife. And that's all thanks to Leave No Trace. There's also several species that could not survive if we just acted irresponsibly. Take all of the bird species that are so sensitive, that are already endangered because of our actions. If we polluted and did whatever we wanted, making the air unclean, making the water dirty, leaving around garbage that they could pick up and swallow, then we are going to lose a lot more species on this planet. So if you want your kids, your grandkids, even your great-great-great-grandkids to have the same experience on this earth that you had, then you need to make sure to leave no trace. Not only should you practice leave no trace, but if you're out on a walk and you see someone else who's not practicing leave no trace, maybe you could educate them. Tell them why it's so important and why it means a lot to you. Thanks for tuning in. Join us back here at noon for another video with Jeremy Rapacelli, Camp Akihila's nature director, and his insects. In the meantime, we have linked the National Park website's virtual tours in the comments. Make sure to check out a couple of these virtual tours so you can see the beauty that America has to offer. See you at noon.